It's Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day is a veritable masterpiece of corporate emotional manipulation. It exists in our world only to exploit that thing that lives in the core of so many of us, the need to hook up and stay hooked up with that special someone, or that not so special, not so good looking someone, but hey, at least they're stable, that need to be loved, to be desired, to be wanted. That thing that is at the center of so much of human existence. That thing that is so delicious and ripe for exploitation. It all starts when you're in grade school. They sell these cardboard sheets with cartoon characters on them. Cartoon characters in love. Even though that goes totally against what most of these cartoon characters are all about. Garfield doesn't fall in love with anything but lasagna. Someone get this card to stop lying to me. They tell you to fill out these cards for all your classmates. All the boys and all the girls. The kids you like and the ones you don't. They tell you to make a sad little paper bag that is filled up with cards from all the other kids. And then we take that sad little paper bag home and throw it away. Thrown away, like your dignity, after having to give Jeremy Reynolds that Garfield Valentine only 2 weeks after he pushed you off the slide at recess. But you'll get him back one day, won't you? One day soon. Very, very soon. Then in high school, they decide to up the ante on you by making you buy a carnation for that special someone. And so you do. And then they never talk to you ever again. So then you sit there alone with no carnation, and you look around the room in homeroom and notice that you're the only kid there with no carnation. And you sit there in your own sadness and your own pity. I'm not saying this ever happened to me though. I've been handsome and popular all my life. This, of course, is child's play compared to what you have to deal with when you get into the adult world, where the true test of love is how much was spent on you, or how much you spent on them, because she's worth it, because you're worth it. This message brought to you by your friends at De Beers Diamond Corporation. How did it all come to this? What happened? How could we be so weak? How could we fall for this kind of thing? If you ask these kinds of questions, they may tell you something like, well, Valentine's Day has been with us for thousands of years, you know. They may tell you that Valentine's Day has its roots in Lupercalia, a Roman fertility festival where men would hit young women with bloody strips of goat skin in hopes of fertility, and that the festival was co-opted in by the church as St. Valentine's Day. But any reputable scholar will discount that idea. There's just no proof of that. St. Valentine's Day is still a liturgical holiday in the Anglican Church. It's named for 2 martyrs called Valentine, who were both apparently executed on February the 14th, though on different years, sometime during the 3rd century. There is a story that says sometime around 260 AD, the Roman Emperor Claudius II banned marriage for some reason. A priest called Valentinus started performing secret marriages. He was later found out and imprisoned. Valentinus falls in love with some girl who comes to visit him. Valentinus sends her a final note from his cell before he is beheaded, signed, "From your Valentine." Did you throw up in your mouth? This, of course, is a story. It's a legend. There's no proof of it ever happening. Valentine's Day first starts to be associated with love during the Middle Ages, because that's when they believed birds selected their mates, because, of course, nothing says romance like a couple of mating birds. Have you seen birds mate? It's brutal. I'm being serious here. The first reference to Valentine's Day being a special day for lovers comes in Chaucer's Parliament of Fowls from 1383. This is, of course, a poem about birds on Valentine's Day, the day they couple up, because, as we know, Valentine's Day is for the birds. Hey, you lovebirds, cut it out. That's some foul play. Valentine's Day was for hundreds of years celebrated by the literate aristocracy, people who had time to read Chaucer and write fancy love poems on fancy pants parchment paper. It wasn't until around the early 19th century that mass-produced, pre-printed Valentine cards finally started to come around. A big reduction in postal rates in the UK during the 19th century, combined with pre-written messages, made expressing your feelings far easier, in a time when expressing your feelings was not a thing people did. Stiff upper lip, flaccid below the hips. That's the Victorian way. The Valentine was a big hit. They were being mailed everywhere. One of the English Valentines landed in my home state of Massachusetts, in Worcester, in 1847, in the hands of a woman named Esther Howland. Howland liked the cards so much that she decided to have some of her own printed up. Her father was a stationery maker after all, and so she sold them in her father's shop in Worcester, Massachusetts. The Valentine card industry really took off after the Civil War and became so pervasive that a little over 100 years later, tiny school children would have to stay up half the night writing names on cheap Valentine cards to throw in a barf bag hanging on a kid's desk with Scotch tape. But I'm not bitter about that. I swear, it's okay. I'm okay, and everything is okay. It wasn't until the middle of the 20th century that the February retail landscape started to become littered with red roses and heart-shaped boxes. I'm actually pretty surprised the marketers took that long to figure it out. I mean, come on. People were readily shelling out their cash for pieces of cardboard with someone else's words printed on them. They'll buy anything. Just sell it. Originally, it was just the florists and the candy makers selling those weird little hearts with the creepy messages on them. You know those things, those disgusting little candies that taste like chalk and old teeth. Then, in the middle of the 20th century, it just got out of hand. Want to say I love you? You have to go on vacation. You have to go to dinner. You have to go see that awful movie where they kiss in the rain. You have to go to Disneyland. Not big on wine tasting? Too bad. You're going. In the 80s, they started telling us that we had to get diamonds. And of course, we bought into that as well. How could we not? They told us to. And if we don't, we're awful, useless people with no love in our hearts. Our years together don't mean anything without diamonds. Just because. The truth of the matter is that the history behind Valentine's Day is so murky that nobody can really figure it out. But here are some cold, hard facts. The average amount of money spent per person on Valentine's Day last year was $133.91. Americans spent $17.3 billion on Valentine's Day last year. It's the fourth highest grossing retail holiday of the year. It's big business. They struck a nerve. They hit a chord. They got you by the balls. They hit you way down in the sweet spot, deep down in your tiny, tiny reptilian brain. And they're playing you, just like an instrument. Can you hear the music? It sounds like money. Oh, how terrifying. After all, there is terror. There is terror all around you.